Good morning, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I'm Greg White, Chair of the Blair County Chamber's Public Policy Committee. For the next 25 minutes, we ask that you share with our committee your thoughts on a series of questions concerning your potential role as a Blair County Commissioner. Those questions were submitted by committee members and will be asked of each of the four candidates. We recognize that the results of the commissioner's race will heavily impact a number of aspects of the county's growth, and it's important that the business community know how you stand on issues related to that growth. As we indicated when we invited you, we are taping our sessions this morning, and we'll make them available via YouTube to anyone who would like to have access to them. The video production has been sponsored by the Durbin Companies, Haas Steak and Sea House, P. Joseph Lehman, Inc., Consulting Engineers, National Property Inspections, and Stifler, McGraw and Associates. Let's begin with our questions with candidate Amy Webster. First, property tax reassessment has been and remains a hot button issue for area residents. While the process had not been conducted here since 1958, going forward, how often do you feel an update should take place, or what new approaches to property reassessment should be considered in order to keep the rates current and fair across all properties?
As you know, that is my biggest issue. That's what got me involved in this whole race, was the reassessment issue. So I have some different perspectives on that. And having been a real estate attorney and a real estate broker, I've only been a broker for 5 years, but I've been an attorney for over 30. I've been dealing with this issue for a long time. I don't believe that there's a hard and fast rule that we should reassess every certain number of years. If there were, the statute would include that, but the statute does not. I believe that it is much better to look at changes periodically, just based on what's happening in the community. You can look at neighborhoods a little bit at a time as they are changing over. Now, there are several procedures that are available through the existing laws and regulations that we have in Pennsylvania. And those include various opportunities, I guess is the best way to put it, for specific groups. There are rebates and for veterans. There, in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, the first and second class counties, there are available remedies for, what do they call it? I can't think of it. Gentrification Act is what they call it, where after you've lived in your home for a certain number of years and have reached a certain age, you are able to have your taxes will not increase. I think that's something we should certainly look into. If that's appropriate for Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, it certainly is appropriate here. We are in a similar situation with aging population, and unfortunately a lot of the younger folks who don't seem to be making the most of the opportunities that we do have here, who have a lot of needs that then become issues that we, the commissioners and the community, need to provide funds for these services for these folks. There are one of the important issues that I'm not sure that you all are aware of is something called the common level ratio. The state determines on a county by county basis what the common level ratio is, which is the comparison of assessed values to sale prices. And the reason that we had to reassess was because our common level ratio had gone so far above 1.0, where it's supposed to be. It was up 9 point something. So we reassessed. And of course, we can certainly keep an eye on the common level ratio and make a determination based on that as to whether it's necessary to reassess or not. However, I've been watching the common level ratio, and as I suspected, the assessed values right now are too high because the common level ratio has dropped below 1. It's at 0.9. 0.9 might not sound like a huge number, but when you consider that not every property in the county would have sold last year, there's only a few that would have sold. Those comparisons of those few properties were sufficient to bring our common level ratio down below 1. So that speaks volumes. And in speaking with the register and recorder, she was agreed with me that that indicates that the assessments are too high right now, and we do need to deal with that. And those are some of my ideas of ways to handle that. But I don't think that there's a hard and fast rule. We should do it every so many years. I think that keeping an eye on the common level ratio is one indication, and then there's information available to the realtors as to what neighborhoods properties are selling in, and you can look at them that way.
Thank you. States and municipalities across the country are competing to attract new talent and investment into their respective communities. As a result, government entities are increasingly investing in both traditional roads, bridges, broadband, and place-based parks, trails, streetscape, infrastructure projects. How do you value public investment in each of these types of infrastructure projects?
Well, infrastructure obviously is very important. We have a big issue though right now with the prison needs a lot of work. And of course that's not going to draw anybody into the community, but that is unfortunately a big priority right now. And a lot of our resources over the next few years are going to go there, I'm sure. Regardless of who ends up in the offices of commissioner, they're going to have to deal with that. But in terms of other issues, I am grateful that we have the Rails to Trails project, and I'm really happy that PennDOT took it upon themselves to finance the what's going on down near Canoe Creek, connecting Canoe Creek and all. Those kinds of things will certainly bring in younger people. But I think another thing that we need to do, in addition to encouraging these kinds of really neat places, is to encourage our private organizations, churches, community groups to use these to have special activities, because that too will draw in people. If you go to Facebook or in the newspaper, you'll see there are a lot of activities that go on around here. But I think the more of those kinds of things and the more diverse they are, then you appeal for more and more folks. Let's see. I'm not sure. I think I answered your question. I kind of lost track there. There were a lot of things to say.
Economic and community development is often defined by public-private partnerships and programs. What programs, incentives, and partnerships do you see as effective in promoting new investment in our community? What's not working, and what new ones might you recommend?
Like the rest of you, I too am a business owner and have been for over 30 years. So I am concerned about making sure that we do have new businesses coming into the area and new opportunities created. I am happy to see things like the Altoona VOTEC program, because that trains people in such ways that on things that we seem to have been putting aside and ignoring for many, many years. And I encourage, obviously, kids going to those kinds of programs. We just recently had two layoffs of a large amount of people from Conrail recently, or not Conrail anymore, but Norfolk Southern recently, and those folks are going to need to be retrained. There are a lot of things that we can do. Another segment of the population is the prison population, who come out, and unfortunately, if they don't have good resources in place, within the first 48 hours, they end up back in jail again. We don't want that. We want people to come out and be able to be employed and doing something productive. And I think we can get churches and community groups like the score to go in and meet with these folks and help them with resumes and interviewing. Just practice these things and prepare them so that they can go out. But to bring people into the area, I watched the videos that ABCD and Southern Alleghenies had, and they're very good. They show a lot of the good possibilities and opportunities that we have here. But I do see that public-private opportunities will be the best. It's good to include our local businesses and community organizations because these are the folks that need to give support to those that we're bringing in. People are coming here from elsewhere. They're probably not familiar with the area. They don't have any friends necessarily, or maybe just a couple. But if we are willing to extend a hand, have a welcoming type organizations, have because those are folks that are coming in who already have jobs. We're not dealing with having to help them with employment. Other folks that we want to draw into the area, I think, we have a college here that is wonderful and provides a lot of opportunity. I think we can partner with them too. I believe that supporting the social services is very helpful. We need to help people to break out of some of the troublesome behaviors and addictions that exist here, not just here, but everywhere, in order to draw them into opportunities. And I believe that we can use we have a lot of existing wonderful community groups who have an individual interests in different areas, and I'm certain would be willing to continue to provide education, support, and whatever would be necessary to help people to acclimate to our community.
There was discussion during the primary that there are pockets of corruption in Blair County government. Where specifically do you think corruption exists, and what steps would you take to root out that corruption?
Well, I think that corruption tends to exist everywhere because we as humans are selfish and greedy, and of course that's going to happen. I personally do not go looking for corruption. I have been told of issues that may or may not exist. That is not my top issue. I'm more concerned with getting the reassessment process to a point where it's more fair, getting that on track, and working on economic development for our area. I think that ultimately, if there's time, I would probably look into some of the allegations that I've been given, but that's not the top of my list right now. I'm not saying I want to encourage corruption, of course not, but I'm not sure that it's as big of an issue as had been raised. I don't know. I honestly don't. I haven't looked into it, and it's not that it's unimportant. I believe there are other issues that seem to take precedence to build up our community before we can have that opportunity to root out any issues that may exist. I would certainly like to make certain that as we, in the position of commissioners, go forward preparing budgets and things like that, that we give opportunities to everyone. That's an important thing. That's an allegation that many people are excluded from bidding and things like that. I don't know how you can exclude people from bidding, and the only way I will know is to be there and to see whether or not that is even true. So I believe that that's something we obviously need to address, but I don't know what those specific areas may or may not be. And I believe that it would be impossible to identify them unless you're actually in that position looking at those things. I believe that in budgeting, you'll probably, if there is that, it will become very apparent. And if not, there won't be anything to see.
In previous administrations, the Board of Commissioners have been supportive of tax abatement and incremental tax forgiveness programs such as LRTA and the Keystone Opportunity Zone program. If elected, would you continue to support these types of tax incentive programs?
I would. Actually, I was the solicitor for Catherine Township about 25 or 30 years ago when LERTA was begun, and we opened a LERTA zone, and I thought that was one of the most amazing things. And I'm glad that we have those things in Pennsylvania. They're very helpful. We have a couple of, like here, we have a couple different incubators and opportunities, and you do see new businesses springing up, and I think that's a great thing. We really do need to encourage folks to start new businesses. That's hard to do. It's expensive. It takes a lot of guts, and it takes a lot of knowledge. And a lot of the knowledge is things that we don't pick up in school. It's part of life. So yes, I would certainly encourage those to exist. I would want to have more of those, if possible.
America as a whole continues to grow and is becoming more diverse every day. Family structures and lifestyle choices are changing rapidly. Blair County's demographic structure is not reflected in those national trends, while overall population continues to decline. What's your plan to attract the next generation to our community? How do you see Blair County in 30 years? And what's your vision for the county?
Thank you. That's a really neat question. Well, if you look around, we are an aging population. I mentioned that earlier. And unfortunately, a lot of the younger people seem to be having issues and require a lot of social services. So, as I stated earlier, we do need to reach out with our public and private partnerships to try to encourage people and get them out of destructive behaviors. However, getting past that, I believe that we have a lot of resources here that we can use to attract people. We have beautiful parks. Canoe Creek is a wonderful place. I'm the chaplain there in the summertime, and I see a lot of programs that they have. They have different educational and ecological programs. They have movie nights, all sorts of different things that are fun. People that come to Canoe Creek usually are from outside of the area. They come and they enjoy these things, and hopefully maybe some of them will stick around, I don't know, or decide that if they're going to move that they'll make a move to here. But that's one example. We have historical sites that are fascinating. I wish that our historical organizations would be able to combine together to some extent, not necessarily organizationally, but work together on projects and activities, because those things create interest, and people that are interested in history might then take more of an interest in coming to this area. There are people who have interests in many different things that we can certainly support. We have the Rails to Trails, which is a wonderful experience. There are folks that use that on a daily, well, maybe not daily, but on a regular basis. That'd be kind of hard to do every day, but younger people probably could do that. But we have a lot of great things. I think we need to get the word out there, in order to attract other folks. I know, unfortunately, I know so many of us in my age group whose kids didn't find opportunity here and left and went elsewhere. And I hate to see that, because this is a beautiful area and we do have a lot of opportunity. And look at all the businesses that, as we are all aging, we need to find new folks to come in and take over and continue these things, because these are necessary services. So I think that, in advertising, social media, I think there's a lot we can do there. And I know that there's a lot that's already being done, but maybe there are new ways to address other folks. I think that you see a huge divide in America between more conservative values and more progressive values, as they say. And I believe that there are a lot of people out there who are very conservative and would be looking for an area like this. And maybe we should be reaching out to folks out in the West, where there are a lot of people that probably feel pushed out from their communities, and try to encourage them to bring their talents here and their abilities and become a part of our community.
The county is a critical government service provider for area residents. What role do you see as appropriate for county government to play in the lives of area residents?
Well, county government has become involved in many more areas over the past probably 30 years than there were 30 years ago, let's put it that way, because there have been so many more needs. We have seen the addiction problem really ravage our communities and cause a great deal of economic problems for us. And as a result, we've had to allocate funds that normally could go to maybe economic development and things like that in order to try to help people to get recovery from some horrible addictions and things like that seem to overtake their lives, and they're not able to then participate in the work community, which is, it's bad on so many levels, not only personally, but it hurts our economics, and it hurts our community development, our community organizations. You know, going forward, will we have people that will be able to provide services to others? It is unfortunate that government has had to step in, and that's why one of the things that I raised in the primary campaign was the importance of public and private cooperation, because I don't believe that we can continue increasing taxes on people in order to pay for these things. I think that rather than penalizing the residents who are working and own a home, we need to encourage our churches and our community organizations to help step in. I realize it's probably the same folks, but I think that throwing money into problems doesn't necessarily cure them. I think that a personal interaction is more likely to be successful, and I would like to see cooperation. Some of the Altoona churches recently banded together to start addressing some of these issues, and that's a good step in the right direction, and I believe a lot of other organizations can do the same. I hate to continue increasing taxes in order to pay for these programs. Fortunately, there are a lot of grants that are available through the state and federal governments, and we rely on those to a large extent to fund a lot of our social ills and problems. But I believe we need to get creative instead of just throwing tax dollars at that. I believe we need to get true community involvement. Look back, 50 or 100 years ago, people were the most important assets and would extend a hand to those in need and would help their neighbors. We don't seem to have that so much anymore because everybody's working so hard, and obviously that has to happen too. But if we could all take just a little time in our organizations to help folks, I think that would be probably much more beneficial than just taking dollars out of our taxpayers and throwing that into a pot.
If elected, what relationship do you plan to have with the business community, and what will form the basis of that relationship?
Well, as you know, I'm also a business owner. I have a couple of businesses actually, and I enjoy that, and I enjoy working with other folks in business. I would like to participate by attending meetings, whatever meetings I'd be able to attend. I'm sure some organizations have special meetings that they don't want outsiders, but I'd like to participate in as many meetings and just hear what companies and what organizations believe that their role is and what their interests are and how they would like to become involved. I'd like to try to bring, after discussing these matters and listening to what the organizations have and would like to do. I'd like to maybe create some alliances between different organizations in order to encourage them to work together. You know, everybody has talents, and we don't always know until we're pushed what they are. And so if we can find out what people like to do and where their abilities are, I think that we can maximize the efforts that all of our different organizations and businesses and churches and community groups have.
Blair County has a large number of nonprofit organizations. Do you believe that nonprofits have equal opportunities in public policy compared to the for-profits?
I've never really researched that issue, so I'm not sure I can answer that. I've created several nonprofits as an attorney, and I've not gotten any reports from any of them that they had any problems or difficulties. So I don't know that that's a huge issue. It may be organizations that I just am not aware of. But I know that a lot of our organizations have been around for a long time and are doing great work. If they were having issues, I'm not sure that they'd still be here. They might be discouraged, they might close or discontinue. So, but I certainly would encourage them. The nonprofits are typically a large amount of the private organizations that I would be reaching out to anyway in order to try to create some of those public-private partnerships. So if they felt that they were being ignored, I certainly would take the opportunity to welcome them and encourage them to participate, because I really think we need them.
Okay, last question time. We assume Blair County is your favorite place to be on earth. Where is your next favorite and why? And what could Blair County learn from that community and your experiences?
Well, that's an interesting question. Yes, I love Blair County. I wasn't born here, but I was raised here, and I do love it here. Well, my next favorite place would probably be Pittsburgh, because that's where I went for law school, and I really enjoyed living in Pittsburgh. It was a really nice city because Pittsburgh, to me, my family came from Chicago, and I like Chicago. My son lives there now, but Chicago is a huge city. But Pittsburgh is like a giant Holidaysburg. You can walk down the street and smile at people, and they'll smile back. It's really cool. If you go to Chicago, they won't even look at you. So I love Pittsburgh in that respect. And what I like about Pittsburgh, and the reason I go there, is the arts and the museums. Now, we have a great art museum here. We have some historic sites. We have some neat things. We have the Mishler. So we do have a lot of the arts. But we have some amazing artists, and I think that we need to encourage them to participate in a lot of things. I know a lot of them, and some of them are getting older and they're kind of pulling away, but there are new ones here, and I think maybe that's one of the things we could focus on to bring new folks here. This is a beautiful area. If you're a paint artist or a sculptor, just go anywhere, and there's wonderful subjects that you could certainly paint or sculpt or draw or whatever you want to do. So that would be one thing that I would want to encourage, would be maybe drawing in some more higher profile kind of arts, music, museum type things like that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.